day. Welcome to the channel. And this is the second episode of our channel. And for today, we will be discussing a legal maxim that you will encounter in criminal law, the maxim of Nullum Crimen, Nulla Poena Sine Lege. So this Latin legal maxim means there is no crime when there is no law punishing it. As held in one of the cases, it is said that even if an act is viewed by a large section of the populace as immoral or injurious, it cannot be considered a crime absent any law prohibiting its commission. So you cannot punish a person for his or her act or omission if there is no law prohibiting such act or omission. And in the case of People versus Sullano, the Supreme Court also held that criminal law is rooted in the concept that there is no crime unless a law specifically calls for its punishment. So the case of People versus Sullano will be fully discussed in one of the episodes. But in this case, the Supreme Court held that courts must not bring cases within the provision of law that are not clearly embraced by it. An act must be pronounced criminal clearly by the statute prior to its commission. So the law shall be enacted first before a person may be punished for an act prohibited by that law. So if the act came first and the law was enacted thereafter, then said act committed prior to the enactment of the law should not be punished by said law. So the terms of the statute must clearly encompass the act committed by an accused for the latter to be held liable under the provision. So this case of People versus Sullano pertain to Section 15 of Republic Act number 9165 for use of dangerous drugs. Here, the accused was found positive after a mandatory drug test. And thereafter, he was charged with violation of Section 15, but he was acquitted due to the absence of one of the elements of Section 15, that is, that the person must be apprehended or arrested first, and thereafter he was found positive through a confirmatory test. So we'll discuss this case more the next episode, but in this case, the court held that a positive a positive random or mandatory drug test result alone is insufficient to convict a person under Section 15 of RA 9165. The person must have been apprehended or arrested and thereafter found positive through a confirmatory test. Courts cannot supply an omitted element or expand a penal statute merely because a broader interpretation may appear more consistent with its perceived policy. In this case, since Sullano was neither apprehended nor arrested, then his acquittal was affirmed by the Supreme Court. Another case which explains the legal maxim of Nullum Crimen was the case of Macabuhay versus People. GR number 270337, decided on August 13, 2025. So a bit recent case at the time of recording of this case. So in this case of Macabuhay versus People, the accused was charged with violation of Section 2A of COMELEC Resolution 10446 in relation to Section 261Q of Batas Pambansa Bilang 881, or also known as the Omnibus Election Code, and also Section 32 of Republic Act number 7166 for carrying a deadly weapon, a fan knife, balisong, for carrying a deadly weapon of fan knife outside his residence during May 13, 2019 national and local election period without the necessary authority. So this was the charge against the accused. So for some brief background, RA 7166 prohibits any person from bearing, carrying, or transporting firearms or other deadly weapons in public places, even if licensed to possess or carry the same, unless authorized in writing by the COMELEC. In furtherance of this, the COMELEC issued Resolution number 10446, which provides for the rules and regulations on the ban on firearms and other deadly weapons, among others, during the election period of the 2019 national and local elections. Rule 1, Section 1I thereof defines the term deadly weapon as bladed instruments, hand grenades, or other explosives except pyrotechnics. Thus, to constitute a violation of Section 2A of COMELEC Resolution number 10446 in relation to the Omnibus Election Code and 7166, the following elements must be established. Number 1, the person is bearing, carrying, or transporting firearms or other deadly weapons. Number 2, such possession occurs during the election period. And number 3, the weapon is carried in a public place. So what was the ruling? Both the Regional Trial Court and the Court of Appeals held that the prosecution was able to establish beyond reasonable doubt all the elements of the crime charged. They found that petitioner was in possession of a deadly weapon, specifically a fan knife, during the election period without having been authorized by the COMELEC to possess or carry the same. So, why was the accused acquitted? If both the Regional Trial Court and the Court of Appeals found that all the elements of the crime charge or the offense charge were present. Well, according to the Supreme Court, the accused must be acquitted because the inclusion of bladed instruments in the definition of deadly weapons in COMELEC Resolution number 10446 is null and void. The COMELEC exceeded the scope of its legislative authority by including bladed instruments in the prohibition. The court reiterated its decision in the earlier case of Buelia versus People and explained that Section 261Q of the Omnibus Election Code contemplates only firearms. This is evident from both the title of the section, carrying firearms outside residence or place of business, and from its express terms, which solely address the regulation of firearms during election period. Thus, the Supreme Court added that considering that the Omnibus Election Code and RA 7166 do not prohibit the possession of bladed instruments during the election period, as they are neither regulated by law nor subject to licensing or permit requirements, it is clear that the petitioner, the accused here, mere possession of a bladed instrument in a public place without the requisite COMELEC permit during the 2019 election period does not constitute an election offense. Consequently, the accused is not guilty of the crime charged. This interpretation is consistent with the principle that penal laws are to be construed strictly against the state and liberally in favor of the accused. All told, according to the court, the accused must be absolved of any criminal liability consistent with the doctrine of Nullum Crimen, Nulla Poena Sine Lege. There is no crime when there is no law punishing it. That's it. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something from this criminal law concept lecture. Thank you.